Welcome back. Rivers has been out of the news for a long time, but once again, it is back in the news. This is about 3 months after, if I'm correct, since the state of emergency was declared. There was a bit of a furore on June the 12th when the president made a pronouncement as to whether or not he's restoring democratic rule in that state after suspending elected officials from the State House of Assembly and the governor and his deputy, and brought in a sole administrator, which has been a controversial constitutional issue as to the effects of the latitude of discretion the president had, whether or not he has such powers in the law or not. And that's a subject before the apex court. But something has brought us to Rivers conversation, and two major issues besides others has to do with the budget of the state that has been presented to the National Assembly. The Senate committee had a conversation with the sole administrator, initially submitted 1.4 trillion. Now it's been scaled up to 1.8 trillion from what we understand, making it the second biggest budget in the federation at the sub-national level. Also the issue of the Independent Electoral Commission in the state, bringing in a non-indigent to head as chairman, which has also generated concern. Those are some of the framework of our conversation today. So we're bringing in Dr. Gift Wolu, is former Commissioner of Housing in Rivers State and a senior lecturer at the University of Port Harcourt, joining us from Abuja studio. Also joining us is the chairman of Coalition of Rivers Youth Groups, Xavier Oscar. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning and good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dr. Wolu, let's come to you first in Abuja studio, Dr. Wolu. And I want your immediate reaction to the Senate leader, Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, who had raised concern about nominating a non-indigent to head RISEC. And he said, paraphrasing his thought, this optics would not look good given the prevailing circumstance in Rivers, and to the effect that the sole administrator is from Rivers State. How do you interpret what this means to the coming election? I'm not sure of the date now, of the local government election.
Okay, thank you very much for that interesting question. I would say that what the sole administrator has done, and which has been confirmed by the National Assembly, is in order. Don't forget that 2 years ago we had a local government election in Rivers State conducted by retired Justice Enebeli-led Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. And that election became a subject of litigation, and in the final analysis, the outcome of that election was thrown out. But before then, people had been elected in the manner that they were elected and given the authority to run our local governments. And if you go to Rivers State today, the records are there to show that they literally looted the local governments and rendered the state useless as far as that level of governance is concerned. Don't also forget that our state, like you mentioned in your opening remarks, has been a subject of ridicule, if you like, because of the arbitrariness and incompetence of the governor at the time. And that was the reason some of us had to leave that government. Because the Supreme Court also affirmed and vindicated us when he said that there was no government in Rivers State and that the governor was a despot and unfit to govern the state. That situation led to serious political and security challenges that led to the declaration of state of emergency. Now that we are in a state of emergency, and given the fact that Rivers people somehow have been torn apart by that political situation, and people have taken sides politically, ethnically, and otherwise. And we're in a situation where we're trying to make peace and see whether we can have a semblance of stability and progress. It is only necessary that something extraordinary has to be done. And one of those things is to get a neutral person, because that's how I see it. Anybody who is not from Rivers State that is brought in, it doesn't matter where the person comes from, so long as the person is a Nigerian, to come conduct election that will be free, fair, credible, and objective, and give Rivers people the opportunity to elect for themselves those who will lead them at the local government level. It's a welcome development.
All right, Mr. Olu, let's take it to Mr. Oscar. Mr. Olu, by the way, the chairman of RISEC has not been confirmed. The committee has done their work. It's not been presented before the House, so we'll wait for that to complete before we can say properly confirmed, just for the purpose of record. Mr. Oscar, you've heard Mr. Owolu and some of the questions I did ask. And how are you receiving this as far as the issue of bringing in a non-indigent, which the argument of the gentleman is to the effect that in RISEC law, there's nothing that is illegal. The RISEC did not say, the law establishing RISEC did not say it must be an indigent of the state. Mr. Owolu said because of the argument around this partisanship and what brought us to the state of emergency, it's fair that a neutral person comes in. The Senate leader has also said, look, so that it's not repugnant to public conscience, we need to look critically at this. How do you characterize yours?
Thank you very much. Once again, good morning. So good morning to Nigerians. And I want to sincerely say that it's sad and a very sad situation that we have here in Rivers State. We've not got it this sad in Rivers State. And I want to sincerely say, without romancing the truth, let's just be factual and let's be realistic about what is going on in our state. Rivers State is in a serious, embarrassing situation. I must say it there everywhere. We are embarrassed. I am embarrassed. We are all insulted. We are all embarrassed in Rivers State. It's so worrisome that a former commissioner, my brother and a friend, will sit down to say it is okay for RISEC to appoint a non-indigent as the chairman of RISEC in Rivers State, when we have capable hands in Rivers State. Even when we also believe, just like I have stopped talking about Nigerian Constitution because it's obvious that Nigerian Constitution is not being respected. The Nigerian Constitution is now more like a paper that nobody respects again, including Mr. President. I must sincerely say, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu do not have respect for the rule of law, do not have respect for Rivers people, do not have respect for Nigerians who must thank it. It's unfortunate that we have a president that do not listen or pay attention to the Nigerian Constitution. So some of us as laymen do not have respect again for the Nigerian Constitution. Now we have a situation where our Constitution has been breached. Our Constitution has been condemned. Judicial process has also been condemned. That the judiciary is yet to live up to expectation. The judiciary is yet to actually regain its lost glory. It is totally an aberration appointing an indigent or a non-indigent of Rivers State as the RISEC chairman. It's an aberration, and we must actually say it. It's unfortunate that we also have a state of emergency in Rivers State. We have insecurity in Benue State. The president just came back from Benue State and saw the high level of death, 200 beings that was killed. There is no state of emergency in Benue State. Mr. President cannot declare a state of emergency in any state of the north. I'm not bold to say this. Now, Mr. President cannot declare a state of emergency in any state of the north. I will say this very boldly. Mr. President cannot also declare any state of emergency in the east. So what happened to the South-South? Why are those of us in the South-South allowing illegality to become a situation that has become a statutory situation in Rivers State? Now we have a sole administrator, Ibat, that is on right now. Why do we have a sole administrator in Rivers State? What actually led to the state of emergency? That Mr. President or the sole administrator that a retired senior military officer tell us that ever since he took over as the sole administrator in Rivers State for complete 3 months today, that he has not been able to verify or to give us a reason why there was a state of emergency. What have we gotten? What is the verification or investigation that has been able to give out to the public that this is the...
Oh dear, we'll get to Mr. Savior later on as soon as we resolve that audio challenge, the connection challenge. But let me come to you now, Dr. Owolu. Before we begin to look at the increase in the budget, still on the nomination of a non-indigene to head RCEC and other members, I'm looking at the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission law, and it says here that the governor shall appoint the chairman and members of the commission subject to confirmation by a resolution of the House of Assembly. That's on the one hand. The PDP has also been speaking on the appointment request by Mr. President and pretty much calling the appointment also into the Rivers Primary Healthcare Board, Rivers Civil Service Commission, and Rivers Local Government Service Commission a joke and a gradual slide into dictatorship. I'd like you to respond to these issues. By the way, it's Chief Bode George, who held a press conference to address these issues a few days ago, who has said this. I'd like you to respond to this.
First, we must agree that these are unusual times in Rivers State. When you say state of emergency and the governor was suspended, the deputy suspended, members of the State Assembly suspended, and you have a sole administrator managing the affairs of the state, you don't expect that things will be as normal as they used to be if we had those institutions in place. And the reason why we found ourselves in this situation is clear to everybody. Like I said before, the incompetence of the governor, as he then was, and arbitrariness. And I told you that the Supreme Court clearly stated that the governor, the things that he did, including disrespect and disobedience of court orders, and all the challenges that arose because of his ascension into office, and the security situation in the state at the time. Don't forget that we at a point we started seeing explosions happening and protests every day, brothers after brothers and sisters after sisters. Deaths and bomb blasts, during protests and all of that. And where we are now is that we are trying to see whether we can move forward. And we can't have a sole administrator who doesn't have the necessary instruments to work. All these organs, the RISEC, the Civil Service Commission, and so on, are the organs that the governor or the administrator needs to be able to work. If those things are not in place, he will not be able to carry out his function. He's not a magician who will be able.
Some would say that even in these extraneous circumstances, the action is illegal. I just quoted to you from the RCEC law. In ratifying the state of emergency, the National Assembly had approved also a committee to resolve the political conflict in Rivers State. Why has that committee not led to a significant resolution of the conflict? And why the hurry for the sole administrator, who is a retired military general, military official, conducting a democratic local government election in Rivers State?
Rivers State and Rivers people, I think, are comfortable with what is happening today. And the reason is simple. We are coming from somewhere. And where we are coming from is worse than where we are now. And we are hopeful that we may get away from here to the promised land. And it is through consultation. See, as we speak today, there are no elected local government officials in Rivers State. And we must have people who will run those areas for the dividends of democracy to get to the people of the grassroots. If Rivers people have agreed and empowered the sole administrator to go ahead and do these things, I think that we should allow it to fly. Don't forget that many months ago, Rivers people were not able to move freely in the state. Rivers people were not able to know clearly. For example, we didn't have a budget. Business people were in a state of uncertainty. They didn't know what to do. In all the states of the Federation, they have budgets. It's only in Rivers State that we don't have budget. Now that we're trying to have one, I don't see. Let us allow these things to fly. At the end of the day, if elections are conducted, we have people who are Rivers people in that commission. It's just that the head is not a Rivers person. At the end of the day, we should be bothered about them conducting free and fair and credible election, different from the kind of charade that Justice Enebeli and co. gave us, so that we can have Rivers people elected by Rivers people running the local governments and other affairs of the state.
All right, let's take it to Mr. Oscar. It's quite an interesting conversation because I'm just wrapping my head. Excuse me. There's a lot of constitutional argument as to even the legality or otherwise, because there's no such thing as sole administrator in the Constitution. So the argument over the discretionary latitude of the president to appoint a sole administrator is contentious. My colleague has also read the issue of the RESEC appointment, which has to be presented by the governor to the State House of Assembly. So one is really wondering, how are we navigating this whole conundrum around the law, because we operate a constitutional democracy. But Mr. Oscar, what Mr. Wall is saying, there has to be a way forward. In your books, let's accept without conceding that this is contentious. What is the way forward? Mr. Oscar, yes.
What I was considering as the way forward was that the June 12 that just passed, that Mr. President would have used the opportunity June 12 to have corrected the mistake that he made. I want to believe, I want to assume, or the first want to believe that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, made a mistake. Actually, a governor, even when the constitution says it's told like that is a constitutional breach, just is also admitted by legal practitioners. That is obvious that what Mr. President did against 1999 Nigerian Constitution as amended. If the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually wanted to correct we are thinking that Mr. President talk about busybody people. Now, why is Mr. President listening to naysayers? Why is Mr. President listening to busybody people? Because let us leave Constitution. Let us leave all this thing that is going on and say the truth. And what's the truth? The thing is that the problem in River is purely political. There is nothing about any other thing anything can say about River State situation. What we are suffering in River State is purely political crisis. And what are we as political crisis? Just one man. I made bold to say that just one man want to be at the ends and want to be head and the North in River State. Who are from the FCC, Barrister Yes on base 1 week, the former governor of River State is the major problem we're having in River State. Let's not pen the truth. That is the obvious truth, and this is obvious fact that the problem we have in River State is as of yes of week, the FCC trying to take charge of River State. He's in charge of River State resources. I want to say no. River never have any of it to say no. 1 or 2 days of action, he was in a rebuilding. When he was in River,
all right.
He was around. Even when
pardon me, Mr. Wallo, I'd have to come in there. The conditions for your audio are pretty much imperfect and making it difficult for us to hear you clearly. Let's hope that that is resolved. But as we coast home, Dr. Wallo, I'd like you to respond to the most recent report about the increase in the budget of Rivers State from 1.4 trillion to 1.8 trillion, an increase by about 400 billion naira. And the sole administrator is saying, quote now, that it is my well-considered opinion that the expenditure were clearly stated, citing gaps in data that affected the accuracy of the initial estimates. That would be of the 2024 budget that was 1.4 trillion. Is this justification good enough to increase the River State budget for 2025 by 400 billion naira?
First, if we understand the process of budgeting, you'll agree with me that there are economic and social assumptions that govern the figures that you see in the budget. For example, the issue of oil benchmark. Now, presently, you know that the war between Israel and Iran and other geopolitical, tensions here and there have led to the increase in the price of oil. That ordinarily will mean increase in the monies accruing to states and the federal government from oil proceeds. And if you look at that alone, you may see a difference in what you probably proposed before this war and the increase that it has brought about. So in my opinion, I think that what they have done is to look at what the former governor had done, dust it up, see areas where there can be increases or decreases. And then they are giving us something that is more realistic given the present circumstances in which we find ourselves. And for me, what is important is not how much is in the budget. It is the capacity of the system to generate the money and to wisely spend it for the benefit of the people. So if you budget 1.4 trillion and you make 1.8 trillion, you will have a surplus. If you budget 1.8 trillion and you are able to realize 1.4 trillion, you have a deficit. But what matters is your ability to balance these figures and have a situation where the budget becomes a document that the people of the state can use to make decisions that benefit them, either as individuals or business people. So I don't know, there may be other reasons beyond the one adduced by the sole administrator. But again, we must appreciate the fact that the National Assembly is an institution that we all pray and wish that they are strong enough to do their oversight and other functions, as enshrined in the Constitution. And what they shouldn't do, what I would not expect the National Assembly or any assembly for that matter to do, is to receive a document from anybody and just approve it without some kind of input. If they have looked at the document and, of course, talking with the governor and other officials of government, they think that there is need to increase it, and they have the basis, the assumptions that guide that kind of decision, we should allow it to fly.
All right, let's come to Oscar as we wind down. This will be, Mr. Oscar, let's have your take on this issue of increasing the budget by 400 billion. In fact, let me read what Senator Kwame Bamidele noted, that the increase in the budget was partly informed by a 50 billion naira allocation aimed at settling outstanding pension liabilities, a move described as key to the ongoing peace process in the state. I just needed to read that line for you. Mr. Oscar, you have 1 minute, please.
Let's first of all underline the first thing. Budget padding is first a criminal offense in this country. It has been on for a very serious, before the previous administration, up to this administration, it's all very serious offense we speak. First, how about getting to your question, who have to make the new state budget to be submitted? Is it Mr. President that we have a constitutional breach, that Nigeria is now like a country without a constitution? Nigeria is now working without a constitution, and there is our constitution becoming a paper, a document that could be used as toiletry. We no longer. It is a wrong decision, a criminal offense. Even EFC was supposed to look at such situations. What is holding the EFC to actually go against or arrest Mr. President? The Senate President is not having the immunity not arrested. Why is the President not arrested? Why are the National Assembly actually doing this? Totally, it's a total slap of Rivers people.
All right.
Let's also look at from perspective. Before trying to look at who has it right, if there was a need for the budget padding. Now, there is a crisis in Rivers State. Mr. Penn has the responsibility to actually restore the rule of Rivers. That is
all right, Mr. Oscar. Yes, my apologies. You've leveled some allegations that I would have wanted you to substantiate and some of the statements you made, but the network didn't allow us to hear everything you were saying. But we hope we can find the time to further this conversation as long as the issue of Rivers State is concerned. It's 3 months down the line out of the 6 months that was slapped on the state in terms of state of emergency and suspending elected officials. But that's how much we can go with the conversation. Dr. Gift Walu is a former commissioner of housing, senior lecturer at the University of Port Harcourt. Comrade Xavier Oscar, chairman coalition of Rivers Youth Groups, also joining us from virtually. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We appreciate it. And may there be peace in Rivers.